In 1988, East Germany had problems, and to say that its youth were restless would be an understatement as bad as that pun. It is with the backdrop of the slowly collapsing East German state that the ruling Socialist Unity Party's official youth organization, the Free German Youth, hosted its birthday party on March 7th in East Berlin. Rumors had been spreading for weeks on who would perform, and the Ministry for State Security, the Stasi, had been intercepting all manner of letters, tapping phone conversations, and increased surveillance around the country as teens scrambled to make their way to East Berlin for a concert that was only supposed to be for the most connected of students. Because the group that would be headlining this concert for the youth organization that stood for the values of the state was from the West, Depeche Mode. Speaking in 2013, Depeche Mode's lead singer Dave Gahan said, "I still remember that concert very well. I remember traveling to Checkpoint Charlie, trying to get in East Berlin in the first place, the hotel we stayed in, the curfew after the concert, being locked up in the hotel and told not to leave. It was kind of strange to have your freedom taken away from you." But to the East German youth, Depeche Mode was the very symbol of freedom in a society that feared Western influence, especially Western popular culture. The West was used as decadent, it was anti-socialist, and the thinking was if the youth embraced it, they would reject the East German state. This is why they humorously put Iron Maiden on the same level as the CIA. The punk subculture in East Germany was roundly branded as antisocial, a tag that contained some heavy history in German history and was also explicitly against the law in East Germany. If you were deemed a detriment to the public order and safety through an antisocial lifestyle, life could become difficult for you. Which is why it's so incredible that Depeche Mode, a band whose very image was of counterculture and subversion, was not only allowed in East Germany, but actively encouraged. By the mid-1980s, the idea that the state could prevent any and all Western influence was roundly abandoned. State consumerism had been embraced, and there was this idea that value should also flow from the East back into the West. Not to mention, the East German state needed a reason to keep the youth on their side. The East German state was starting to crumble and was only really being kept afloat by loans from West Germany. So what was needed was a way of reframing Western popular culture into a socialist ideal, or at least explained in a way that it wasn't subversive. Enter Depeche Mode. A band that, while often singing songs that were distinctly provocative to conservative mores, often displayed a social conscience. This gave the East German state a way to accept them, and in doing so showcase how a subversive Western act could be made acceptable. Amazingly, Depeche Mode received an official state-issued greatest hits album, which had a state-approved essay on the back. The vocals of Depeche Mode displayed how no human voice should be alienated, and that the lyrics were characterized by direct social commitment. Socialist values. You know, right next to songs about BDSM. Even with this, though, to dress up like the members of Depeche Mode could get you labeled as a thistle in the socialist rose garden. And, as Sascha Lange would say, a lot of people wanted to be that thistle. The Freie Deutsche Jungen, the FDJ, the Free German Youth, during the Cold War were the official young adult league of the ruling Socialist Unity Party. As described by the American Library of Congress in 1988, the FDJ, founded in 1946 and subsequently brought under the control of the SED, has a membership of approximately 2.3 million, or 83% of all youth in the eligible age group, 14 through 25. Membership was voluntary, but for anyone who wanted to advance politically professionally, membership was a practical necessity. Strong measures were exerted on young people through the schools and peer groups to join the FDJ, and the organization's near total control over recreational facilities, resort areas, and entertainment ensured a high membership. Perhaps more important, the FDJ handled university entrance examinations and scholarship programs. The most active members, therefore, were found among students and soldiers. Nearly 80% of each group belonged to the FDJ. Alternatively, as described by East German education in 1989, the FDJ plays an important role in the life of our society. Founded in 1946, the members of the FDJ have stood by many of the focal points of our society's structures. In the struggle for deeper insights into the nature of socialism, the FDJ proves they trust our society places in young people, and enables and expects that the members of the FDJ help plan and govern. This isn't a history of the FDJ, but suffice to say, they were a big deal. Membership in them is basically how you guaranteed advancement in East German society. And with the undercurrents billowing in said East German society, the Socialist Unity Party was looking for ways to bridge the gap to its youth. And the birthday concert for the FDJ on March 7th, 1988 was exactly that opportunity. East Germany had slowly been bringing Western acts over to play, but Depeche Mode was different. This was an act at the height of its popularity. So, to quell the youth, tickets were restricted to only certain members of certain schools that had exclusive FDJ enrollment. After all, this was their concert. According to Gerald Pinatsky, who helped to organize the event, offering tickets to the public would have given us massive problems. The fans would have burnt the house down. That's why the tickets were given to schools and colleges. It would be decided there who would get to go to the event and who wouldn't. Officially, no headliner for the concert was announced. Tickets were printed for 15 Ostmarks, devoid of anything but the barest of details. But unofficially, word had spread around the country quick. Western band Depeche Mode. I couldn't believe it. The Hungarians were probably able to pull such a stunt, since Hungary was halfway west, Sascha Lange recalled in his autobiography. But the Free German Youth? Never. And it wasn't just Depeche Mode fans listening for any and all information in a scramble to find tickets. So was the Stasi. When the Stasi instituted a dragnet, there was no East German law that was sacrosanct. East German law provided that no one would read your mail without your permission. The East German Constitution, in fact, made it a basic right of its citizens that postal and telecommunications secrecy are inviolable, unless the security of the socialist state or criminal prosecution requires it. I think we all know where this is going. Amid rumors of an insane black market, there are rumors that people were exchanging bikes worth up to 600 Ostmarks for a ticket. Teens from all over East Germany leaned on any family connection that they might have in order to secure a ticket. Letters being exchanged by fan clubs in Dresden, Zwickau, and Leipzig were intercepted by the Stasi. And it wasn't just the mail that the Stasi were intercepting. They were also intercepting phone calls. Which brings us to a teen from Cottbus, whose uncle she thought had an in. The only problem was she didn't have her uncle's phone number, so she called her grandfather, whose phone was being tapped by the Stasi, which means we get to hear...
Ja, Tag Opa, du sag mal, habt ihr die Telefonnummer vom Onkel von der Arbeit?
Die hab ich jetzt nicht, warum?
Na, da wollte ich noch anrufen.
Der ist doch jetzt noch nicht mehr auf der Arbeit am halben, das weiß ich.
Doch, halb 4 bist du in der Hause.
Ich hab die Nummer nicht.
Und wie kann ich mich da rangehen? Also, kann ich nur hier den Betrieb anrufen?
Welchen Betrieb?
Na, wo der Onkel arbeitet.
Ja, ist denn das so wichtig?
Ja, das ist sehr wichtig.
Ja, was ist denn das so wichtig?
Na, da gibt es einen Depeche Mode-Konzert in Ostberlin. Und da kann eher an Karten rankommen.
Ach du Liebe, das ist doch nie wichtig.
Doch, das ist sehr wichtig.
Also
the very serious situation that is the Depeche Mode concert. So, to the concert itself, Depeche Mode had long been flirting with East Berlin, recording 3 of their most celebrated albums, 1983's Construction Hem Again, 1984's Some Great Reward, and 1986's Black Celebration, in part at the Hansa Studios in West Berlin. The studio getting the nickname Hansa by the Wall because it was literally right next to it. This gave rise to a desire to play in the eastern side of the city, on the other side of the wall. From a 2009 interview, Andy Fletcher said, "We had been wanting to play in East Berlin since forever, but we were never allowed to. We performed in Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, but 2 cities did not allow us in, Moscow and East Berlin. For years we had been asking our management about it, and one day they said, we did it, you can go to East Berlin." At a press conference held the day of the concert, lead singer Dave Gahan said, "The main reason we come here, to the east, is because we have fans here." He also noted the difficulty in making these concerts possible, stating, "We lose too much money playing behind the Iron Curtain." The concerts, he explained, employed whole swaths of people who needed to earn a living. The price Depeche Mode agreed to play the concert was 5,000 Deutschmarks, about $2,500. A massive steal, even if the writer Depeche Mode asked for presented some difficulty in getting the beer and fruits that they had demanded. The concert was a hit with the audience, with many of them specifically not being members of the FDJ. Newspapers and magazines over the next few days spoke with praise of Depeche Mode, covering not just the concert, but the gracious interviews the band had given, and the time they spent with fans before and after. All that beer and fruit that Depeche Mode had asked for had in fact been given to the 10 fans in specific who had been allowed backstage with them. To the East German government, and especially the East German fans, the concert was a massive success. A report by the SAD Central Committee stated, rock concerts with tens of thousands of spectators have proven to be an effective form of the FDJ's mass political work among youth. And to Depeche Mode, it had been an eye-opening experience, but not in a good way. "We were used by the party," Andy Fletcher said. "There were hundreds of cops during the sound check, and streets were sealed off for miles. The fans would gather around in the area, but could not come close to the venue. It was really frustrating. We were being completely shielded. Before the show, we knew nothing about our East German fans, and after the show, we didn't know anything about them either. And yet, to the people who attended, it had been everything. It felt like extraterrestrials came down for 90 minutes just to disappear again, and all stood there and asked themselves if all this had really happened. This luck, this joy, Depeche Mode in the GDR, and I was there. To Gone and Depeche Mode, the concert had been about losing freedom. But to East Germans, the concert was about experiencing it.